Hello and welcome. Today, we are pulling back the curtain on one of the oldest and honestly one of the most dynamic performance traditions anywhere in the world, Indian theater. It is a massive story that stretches back for millennia, all the way from sacred rituals to what we now call blockbuster entertainment. So, let me start by asking you a question. What's the one thing that connects ancient gods, powerful kings, and, say, passionate modern day protesters? I know it sounds a little like the start of a strange joke, but the answer tells you something really profound about Indian culture.
You got it. They have all been the heroes, the villains, and the central figures of Indian theater. You see, from mythology to politics, the stage in India has always been this amazing space where the biggest ideas of the day get battled out, and this whole incredible journey kicks off thousands of years ago.
Okay, so our story really begins with the classical tradition. This was a hugely sophisticated form of theater that basically laid the philosophical groundwork for everything, and I mean everything, that came after. We're talking about the Sanskrit stage. Now, the absolute foundation for all of this is a text called the Natya Shastra. The best way to think of it is as the ultimate guidebook to performance. It wasn't just a collection of plays or scripts, it was this incredibly detailed manual that covered the whole shebang: acting, stage design, music, dance, and even the emotional journey that the audience was supposed to go on. It's literally the foundational DNA of Indian performance.
And right at the heart of the Natya Shastra is this concept of rasa. This is the absolute core of Sanskrit theater. You see, unlike a lot of Western traditions that might focus on, say, the plot or a character's arc, the main goal here was to create a very specific emotional state in the audience, whether that was love or anger or sorrow or joy. The entire performance was engineered to make you feel the essence of the play.
So, how'd they do it?
Well, the Natya Shastra lays out four key methods. You have Angik, that's acting with the body, then Vachik, the spoken word, the dialogues, then Satswik, which is just fascinating. It's about showing emotion from a truly authentic internal place, almost like a kind of spiritual method acting. And finally, Aharya, that's all the visual stuff, costumes, makeup, you name it. All four had to be in perfect sync to create that rasa.
But here's the thing. This highly structured, super sophisticated Sanskrit theater, it wasn't the only show in town, not by a long shot. It was mostly for the elite, performed in fancy courts and temples. But at the very same time, a whole different kind of theater was alive and kicking among everyday people, out in the open air. And that brings us to the second great pillar, folk theater. Right, so if Sanskrit theater was this carefully polished art form for the upper crust, folk theater was the vibrant, sometimes chaotic, and incredibly tough stage for the people. And this is just so important to understand. As empires rose and fell, and as that classical Sanskrit tradition started to fade away, the folk tradition, it didn't even miss a beat. It basically became this cultural bridge, carrying the flame of performance through centuries of change. And these local forms, they also turned into living archives, preserving regional languages, local myths, and social customs that honestly might have been lost otherwise. I mean, the sheer diversity of these forms is just staggering. There are something like 20 distinct styles that are still practiced today. From the epic religious stories of Ramlila up in the north to the powerful dance drama of Yakshagan down in the south, pretty much every region developed its own completely unique theatrical language. Yeah, this connection between a place and its performance style is absolutely key. Jatra in Bengal, for example, often mixed religious tales with everyday themes. Meanwhile, Tamasha in Maharashtra was famous for its upbeat music and its humor. These weren't just plays, they were a vital part of community life. All right, time for our third act. When the British arrived in India, it wasn't just a political change, it set off a theatrical revolution. All of a sudden, you have contact with the West, which brought in new ideas, new ways of building stages, and a totally new kind of theater was born. And this whole era saw things evolve really, really fast. It started as early as 1765, when Western plays first hit the stage in Calcutta. Then, by the mid-1800s, you had commercial Parsi theater companies making huge waves with these popular plays in Indian languages. And by 1942, that whole evolution led to the birth of IPTA, a movement that was all about using theater for social change. So, in this modern era, you really see two mainstreams taking shape. On one hand, you've got Parsi theater, which was all about mass entertainment. We're talking big, loud, melodramatic shows with tons of songs, all designed to make a profit.
And on the other hand, you had this elite theater develop, which was way more focused on artistic quality, influenced by European realism, and aimed at the educated urban classes.
Now, you absolutely cannot talk about Parsi theater without mentioning one play in particular, Inder Saba. Its story was packed with fairies, princes, and magic, and it was so wildly popular that it basically created the formula for commercial entertainment in India. In fact, if you look at the structure of popular Indian movies today, that mix of romance, fantasy, song, and dance, you can draw a direct line straight back to Inder Saba. It's wild.
This brings us to the final, and maybe the most powerful, evolution. In the modern era, theater wasn't just for fun or for art's sake anymore. It became a mirror held up to society, and often a hammer to try and shape it.
A perfect example of this change is a play called Neel Darpan, which means the indigo mirror. It put the brutal exploitation of Indian indigo farmers by the British right on center stage. This wasn't just a drama, it was an act of protest. It proved that the stage could be a really powerful weapon in the fight for justice and independence. So before independence in 1947, a lot of plays were grappling with this huge question. They were using stories from history and from mythology to spark a sense of national pride and unity, trying to help forge an identity for a country that was fighting to be born.
But then, after independence, the tone really shifted. That early optimism started to give way to a much more critical look inward. Playwrights started asking really tough questions about the new nation. Their plays took on everything from urban loneliness and poverty to the hypocrisy of the new middle class. The stage became the nation's conscience.
So, after this incredible journey, where does that leave us? What is the legacy of this tradition that's thousands of years old?
Well, when you boil it all down, modern Indian theater isn't just one single thing. It's like a mighty river that's fed by three different streams. You have the philosophical depth of the ancient Sanskrit tradition, the raw energy of the folk stage, and the new ideas from the Western tradition. All three flow together to create the vibrant, complex, and amazing theater that we see today. And that kind of leaves us with one final thought, right? In a world that is completely dominated by streaming services and global cinema, what does the future hold for this ancient art form? What's going to be the next act in the incredible and still unfolding story of Indian theater?